When billionaire Derek Whitmore let his mistress publicly humiliate his 8 months pregnant wife at an exclusive party, he thought no one would dare defend her. But when three black SUVs pulled up and her brothers stepped off a $50 million private jet, his entire world shattered in minutes. This is that story. The Manhattan penthouse was drowning in excess. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors, while waiters in white gloves circulated with champagne that cost more per bottle than most people's monthly rent. The rooftop terrace offered a breathtaking view of the city skyline, but tonight the real spectacle was inside, where Manhattan's elite had gathered to celebrate Derek Whitmore's latest triumph, a $500 million tech deal that would cement his status among the city's power players. Tanya Caldwell Whitmore arrived alone, her modest black sedan looking painfully out of place among the Lamborghinis and Bentleys that lined the circular driveway. At 8 months pregnant, every step required effort, but she moved with a quiet dignity that had always been her armor against the world's cruelties. She'd chosen a simple navy dress that accommodated her swollen belly, elegant but understated. As she entered the penthouse, the buzz of conversation seemed to dim for just a moment. Eyes turned, whispers started, and then, just as quickly, people looked away. Her husband was already holding court near the bar, surrounded by admirers and sycophants. Derek Whitmore, at 42, still had the boyish charm that had first attracted Tanya 6 years ago, though she'd learned the hard way that charm was just a mask for something far uglier underneath. But it wasn't Derek who made her stomach clench with humiliation. It was the woman draped across his arm like a designer accessory. Vanessa Laurent was everything Tanya wasn't, or at least everything Derek seemed to prefer these days. A socialite influencer with 2 million Instagram followers, Vanessa commanded attention wherever she went. Tonight, she wore a dress that probably cost more than a car, her neck and wrists dripping with diamonds that caught the light with every calculated movement. She was playing hostess, touching Derek's shoulder, laughing at his jokes, accepting compliments from guests as if this were her party, her life, her husband. Tanya found a quiet corner near the windows, her hand unconsciously moving to her belly where her daughter kicked and turned. She'd debated coming tonight. Her brothers had warned her against it, but some stubborn part of her refused to hide, refused to let Derek erase her completely from his life, even as he paraded his mistress in front of everyone they knew. "Oh, honey, shouldn't you be at home resting?" The voice was saccharine sweet, dripping with false concern. Vanessa had materialized beside her, close enough that Tanya could smell her expensive perfume. "This party is for, well, important people." The nearby guests turned to watch, some not even bothering to hide their amusement. A few pulled out their phones. Tanya's face burned, but she kept her voice steady. "I'm here to support my husband." Vanessa's laugh was like breaking glass. "Support? Darling, look around. Does he look like he needs you?" She gestured toward Derek, who was now addressing a circle of investors, completely oblivious to, or more likely deliberately ignoring, his wife's presence. Some women know when they've been replaced. It's embarrassing, really, watching you cling to something that's already gone. Tanya felt something crack inside her chest, but she wouldn't give Vanessa the satisfaction of seeing her cry. Not yet. She turned away, focusing on the city lights beyond the window, trying to breathe through the pain. The party reached its crescendo when Derek took to the small stage that had been set up near the terrace. The crowd gathered, champagne glasses raised, as he thanked everyone for coming. He detailed the business deal with practiced charisma, acknowledged his business partner, praised several key investors by name. He thanked the catering staff. He even thanked the interior designer who decorated the penthouse, but he never mentioned Tanya, not once. Then Vanessa took the microphone, uninvited but unchallenged. "I just want to make a little toast," she announced, her smile sharp as a blade. The crowd quieted, sensing drama. Here's to women who know their place in the world, and to those who refuse to accept when they've been replaced. Her eyes found Tanya in the corner, and the message was unmistakable. Because let's be honest, some people will do anything to trap a successful man, even use a pregnancy, but the truth always comes out, doesn't it? The room erupted in gasps and nervous laughter. Phones were definitely recording now. And Derek? Derek just stood there with that infuriating smirk, his silence a louder condemnation than any words could have been. Tanya felt the room spinning. This was it. The moment she finally understood that the man she'd married, the man whose child she carried, had no love left for her. Maybe he never had. She stood, gathering what remained of her dignity, and headed for the exit. But Vanessa wasn't finished. She stepped directly into Tanya's path, blocking her escape. Running away? How typical. Her voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. You trapped him with that pregnancy, and everyone knows it. You thought a baby would make him love you. How pathetic. She pushed past Tanya with deliberate force, her shoulder connecting with Tanya's in a way that seemed almost accidental but clearly wasn't. Tanya stumbled, her pregnant belly throwing off her balance. For a terrifying moment, she felt herself falling, her hands instinctively reaching for her stomach to protect her baby. Strong hands caught her before she hit the ground. A young waiter, barely out of his teens, had dropped his tray of champagne glasses to steady her. The crystal shattered across the marble floor, but he didn't seem to care. Are you all right, ma'am? His voice was urgent, concerned. Tanya's eyes were wet with tears she could no longer hold back. I'm fine, she whispered, but they both knew it was a lie. The waiter, his name tag read Carlos, guided her to a private room off the main hallway. He brought her water, pulled out a chair, and asked if she needed him to call anyone. As Tanya tried to compose herself, she noticed the medical textbooks spilling out of his backpack in the corner. Gray's Anatomy, a pharmacology guide, notes covered in detailed diagrams. You're studying medicine? She asked, grateful for any distraction from her humiliation. Carlos looked embarrassed. Trying to. I'm working 3 jobs to save for medical school. Still need another year before I can even apply, but he shrugged. It's my dream, you know. I want to be a surgeon, help people who can't afford regular health care. Despite everything, Tanya found herself smiling. Here was this young man, working as a waiter while chasing an impossible dream, and he'd dropped everything to help a stranger. Don't let anyone tell you it's impossible, she said softly. Your dreams matter. You matter. She pulled out her phone, typing a quick note to herself. His full name, his dream, this moment of kindness when she'd needed it most. They talked for 10 minutes, and for those precious moments, Tanya forgot about Derek and Vanessa and the smoking ruins of her marriage. She encouraged Carlos, asked about his studies, told him about the importance of persistence. When she finally stood to leave, she felt marginally stronger. Not healed, but perhaps capable of walking out of this place with her head up. She decided to use the back exit, unable to face another walk through that crowd of vultures. But as she reached the service hallway, she heard a commotion from the main room. Shouting, the thunder of footsteps. She paused, curiosity overriding her need to escape. Outside, 3 blacked-out Range Rovers had pulled up to the entrance with the kind of precision that spoke of military training or executive security. The party guests had rushed to the windows, their phones out, their excitement palpable. In the distance, visible at the nearby helipad, a custom Gulfstream G700 private jet gleamed under the city lights. Even among Manhattan's wealthy elite, a $50 million aircraft drew attention. Who is that? Someone whispered. The answer walked through the door moments later. 3 black men in perfectly tailored suits entered the penthouse with the quiet confidence of people who'd never needed to prove their power. They moved like sharks through shallow water, dangerous, purposeful, utterly in command. The tallest led the way, his presence alone enough to silence the room. Behind him, 2 others flanked his sides, their eyes scanning the crowd with the practiced assessment of men used to reading threats. The room didn't just go quiet, it went silent in a way that felt primal, instinctive. This was the silence of prey animals sensing predators. Someone near the bar fumbled with their phone, their eyes widening as they read. "Oh my God," they breathed. That's That's the Caldwell brothers. The name rippled through the crowd like an electric current. Phones came out, frantic Googling ensued, and Derek Whitmore's face drained of every drop of color. Andre Caldwell, at 38, was the CEO of Caldwell Global Industries, a Fortune 500 conglomerate with interests spanning technology, real estate, and venture capital. His face had graced the cover of Forbes 3 times. Dominic Caldwell, 35, was one of the nation's most renowned cardiac surgeons and owned a network of private hospitals across the East Coast. And Julian Caldwell, the youngest at 32, held patents on technology that had revolutionized mobile communications, patents worth billions. They ignored the stares, the whispers, the phones recording their every move. Andre's dark eyes swept the room with methodical precision until they found what they were looking for. Tanya had emerged from the hallway, frozen in shock. Her hand covered her mouth as she stared at her brothers, the brothers she'd asked to stay away, to let her handle this herself, to respect her need to make her marriage work without their interference. Andre's stern expression cracked when he saw her face, saw the tears, saw the pain she couldn't hide. In 3 long strides, he reached her, and his voice, so commanding just moments before, went soft. "Little sister, we've been looking for you." That's when Tanya's carefully constructed walls finally crumbled. Tears streamed down her face as Dominic immediately moved to her side, his doctor's hands gentle as he checked her over, his eyes scanning for injury. "Are you hurt? Is the baby okay?" Julian stood guard, his gaze sweeping the room with barely contained fury. "Who made my sister cry?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Andre turned to face the crowd, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of boardrooms and billion-dollar negotiations. "I'm sure you're all wondering why we're here." He paused, letting the tension build. "Allow me to introduce you to Tanya Caldwell Whitmore. Some of you know her as Derek's wife. What you don't know is that she's the youngest Caldwell, the heiress to our family's fortune." The gasps were audible. Phones buzzed with frantic searches confirming what Andre had just revealed. The Caldwell family was worth an estimated $12 billion, and Tanya, quiet, ignored Tanya, was part of that legacy. "6 years ago," Andre continued, "my sister told us she'd found love. She asked us to step back, to let her build a life based on real connection rather than our family's money and influence. She wanted to be loved for who she was, not what she had. So we respected her wishes. We stayed in the background. We watched." His voice hardened. "And we waited to see if Derek Whitmore was worthy of her." Derek looked like he might be sick. Vanessa had gone pale, her phone trembling in her hand as she read article after article about the Caldwell family. Julian pulled out a tablet, his fingers moving across the screen with practiced ease. "Interesting business deal you announced tonight, Derek. $500 million. Impressive." He turned the tablet around, showing a corporate ownership chart. "Did you know that Caldwell Industries owns 40% of your partner's company? 40%. Which means with one phone call, one single phone call, we can tank your entire deal." Derek's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Andre stepped closer to him, and there was no warmth in his eyes. "You had one job, Derek, one simple job. Treat our sister with respect. Treat her with the love and dignity she deserves. You failed." Then Dominic turned his attention to Vanessa, who'd been trying to inch toward the exit. "Ms. Laurent," he said, his voice clinical, "that hospital position you just accepted, the brand ambassador role you've been bragging about on Instagram." He paused. "I own that hospital. 14 hospitals, actually, across 6 states. Consider your contract terminated, effective immediately." Vanessa's Instagram perfect composure shattered. "You can't. I have a contract." "Read the morality clause," Dominic said coldly. "Specifically the section about conduct unbecoming of our brand. I'd say attempting to physically harm a pregnant woman qualifies." She tried to approach Tanya, her hands clasped in supplication. "I'm sorry, I didn't know, please." But Tanya just looked at her with eyes that had been crying all night and said quietly, Now you know how it feels to be powerless. Security, the Caldwell brothers' security, escorted Vanessa out while she sobbed and pleaded. Her phone was already blowing up with followers who'd been watching the drama unfold in real time, but for all the wrong reasons now. Andre pulled an envelope from his jacket and handed it to Derek. Divorce papers. Our lawyers prepared them. Generous terms, all things considered. My sister keeps everything, obviously. You get to walk away with your dignity if you have any left. Derek's hand shook as he opened the envelope. Tanya, please, I didn't know. If I had known. Tanya looked at the man she'd married, really looked at him, and saw him clearly for the first time. You didn't know I had money, so you thought you could treat me like garbage. You thought I didn't deserve basic respect because I wasn't useful to you? She shook her head. You're not sorry you hurt me, Derek. You're sorry you made a bad business decision. That's not... Stop. Her voice was quiet but firm. You showed me exactly who you are tonight. I believe you now. She walked toward the exit, her brothers flanking her like the royalty she'd always been but had tried to hide. The crowd parted for them, and in that moment, Tanya Caldwell Whitmore looked like the queen she'd been born to be. 6 months later, Tanya stood in the nursery of the Caldwell family estate, her daughter sleeping peacefully in her arms. Little Nia had her mother's eyes and her grandmother's smile, and she was surrounded by more love than Tanya had ever imagined possible. The estate sprawled across 15 acres of pristine land, but it was the warmth inside that made it home. Her brothers stopping by daily, her parents doting on their granddaughter, the constant stream of family and laughter filling rooms that had waited for her return. Tanya had stepped into her role as vice president of the Caldwell Foundation, focusing on initiatives that helped underprivileged communities access education and health care. It was fulfilling in ways her marriage never had been, and she woke each morning with purpose instead of dread. One afternoon, while visiting Dominic at his flagship hospital, she literally ran into someone in the hallway. Arms caught her before she could fall, and she looked up into the surprised face of Carlos, the waiter from that terrible night. But he wasn't a waiter anymore. He wore scrubs and a white coat, a stethoscope around his neck, and a hospital ID that identified him as a first-year resident. Dr. Caldwell, he stammered. Tanya had a PhD in social work, something Derek had never bothered to acknowledge. I can't believe I've been hoping to run into you. The story tumbled out. After that night, Andre had tracked Carlos down based on the information Tanya had saved in her phone. The Caldwell Foundation had offered him a full scholarship to medical school, tuition, books, living expenses, everything. He'd just completed his first year at Columbia and was now beginning his residency at Dominic's hospital. You saw me when I was invisible, Carlos said, his eyes bright with gratitude. You treated me like I mattered when you were going through the worst night of your life. You changed everything for me. Tanya felt tears prick her eyes, but these were good tears. No, Carlos. You were there when I needed kindness most. You reminded me that there's still goodness in the world. That meant everything. As for Derek Whitmore, the fall had been spectacular. The business deal had indeed collapsed. Apparently, having the Caldwell family against you made other investors nervous. Bankruptcy followed. His penthouse was sold to cover debts. Last Tanya heard, he was living in a modest apartment in Queens and working as a consultant for a fraction of his former salary. Vanessa had predictably left him the moment his money dried up. She'd moved to Los Angeles to rebuild her brand, but her follower count had never recovered from that viral night. Recently, Derek had seen Tanya's face on the cover of Forbes. The Caldwell Heiress Returns, How Tanya Caldwell is Transforming Modern Philanthropy. The article detailed her foundation's work, her vision for accessible healthcare and education, and her resilience in the face of personal hardship. They didn't name Derek, but the implication was clear. She'd risen from the ashes of a failed marriage into something magnificent. He'd tried to reach out once, an email that Tanya's assistant had flagged. She'd deleted it without reading. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. The final scene of this story finds Tanya on the estate's terrace during a family gathering. Her daughter is 6 months old now, laughing in Andre's arms while Dominic makes silly faces and Julian records it all on his phone. Her parents are there, her aunts and uncles, cousins she'd missed during her years with Derek. The table is full of food and love and the kind of joy that can't be bought, only built carefully with people who truly value you. Tanya holds her wine glass up as the sun sets over the city in the distance. She thinks about the woman she was 6 months ago, crying in a penthouse while the man she loved allowed her to be humiliated. She thinks about the strength it took to walk away, to accept help, to step back into the life she'd left behind. And she thinks about the lesson she'll teach her daughter: never make yourself smaller for someone who can't see your worth. Never hide your light for someone who prefers you in darkness. Because the right people, the people who truly love you, will celebrate your brilliance, not fear it. What are you thinking about? Andre asks, noticing her contemplative expression. Tanya smiles, watching her daughter's face light up with pure, uncomplicated joy. I'm thinking I forgot my crown for a while, but I'm wearing it again now. Tanya learned that her worth was never determined by how Derek treated her. She was always a queen, she just forgot her crown for a while. And sometimes the people who treat you the worst are simply revealing they were never worthy of you to begin with. Never forget your value, because the right people will see it, celebrate it, and protect it, even when you've temporarily forgotten it yourself.